So welcome, it's 2:02. We're going to get things going with regards to your first offer. Um, the quick start sessions, 1 through now we're on 4, there's 6 of them, will get you from the beginning and then throughout all the processes you'll need to know to buy and sell real estate with our company. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. So session 4 is preparing your first offer. It's good for new agents to see this. Obviously, it's our quick start session for agents that have just joined us. However, if you're on and you've done lots of business in the past, it's a good refresher, and you'll pick up some different tips along the way. We'll be talking about things like representation and the offer process, how to put it together. So let's just click on session 4. There we go. As we go, if I could ask everybody, just keep write down your questions off to the side, and then we can open up the lines and answer some questions as soon as the session is done. I'd like to get through the content as quickly as possible, so the video that we do record today will be available and be the shortest possible, so that people don't have to necessarily go through all the question period, and we'll cut off the questions at the end. So session 4, the first offer. Session 3 was last week. We went over a buyer, dealing with buyers and buyer presentations. So we often, as we do with these sessions, look at the homework from last session. So we'll review from last session. We're going to go through the offer process and where to start if you're doing your first offer with us, constructing that offer, presenting that offer. We'll talk about multiple offers as well. And then at the end of the process, when you've done a deal, we have Real Satisfied who will send out a review to your client to give you a nice feedback that is posted online for you guys. So, review from last week. First of all, you should all be previewing a minimum of 10 homes per week. And that's when we sit down and talk about what have you seen last week, etc. In this environment, we're just going to keep it to yes, hopefully you were seeing homes last week. Now, it could be virtually. You don't have to be out actually viewing properties during the COVID crisis. But if you are online weekly, you should be actually probably seeing a lot more than 10 homes. And you should be paying attention to the values in the area. So every month, you're out seeing about 60 homes a month. And that will get you right into the market, and meaning you know what you're selling, you know the values, and you can talk with confidence about anything about real estate. And it is such an important thing in your business to be able to know what you sell. And if you don't, people will test you and you won't even know what's happening. They'll be asking you questions about real estate. And if you cannot actively talk about the market and what's happening today, then they probably will not be suggesting you to others or giving you referrals. Have you added a minimum of 10 more contacts into your CRM? It's possible that you have 1,000 people in your phone and you're winding them down to the top 100 people that you know. It could be very much that you only have 50 people that you know, and you're almost there getting 50 people into the CRM. And then you're going to actively get out into social media and talk to people and reestablish contacts for a while and add to that. Because really you want to be shooting for that 100. That 100 people in your CRM will be, I think, a minimum $150,000 a year for you. If you do it really, really well, that goes up to 200 and 300,000 for 100 good clients. I've seen people do $500,000 to $600,000 in business from less than 100 people because they're really honing in on those top refers, those A-plus clients. So, but we can't do anything and we cannot market to these people unless we have them in a program, which we can now share to other programs or do things such as, dropping by and doing pop buys or handwritten note cards or sending calendars or giving them a market snapshot of their home. These are all good things that we can do, but we can't do it unless we have some sort of organized retention management system. That's what it stands for, client retention management. So make sure to keep adding those, and then having your buyer presentation on file. We don't even need necessarily it on file. We ask that maybe you send it to us so we can put it into your file at the office, just to see all the different things that you've progressed with, like for example, like a business plan, and knowing that you have a buyer presentation or have a listing presentation, and that we can always talk to you about that year after year or every 6 months, a checkup with the office manager just to see how you guys are progressing. So those are 3 things in terms of homework from last week that you should be working on. Whether or not you're brand new or not, these are all good parts of a good business plan. One of the quotes this week is, "The best investment on earth is earth." And we all know this. We're all in real estate, and the fact is it's not getting any bigger, and land is not becoming more available. It's less and less available, so it'll always go up in price in investment and retirement. I mean, to own real estate is probably, well, I would hope it's probably your best investment or one's best investment throughout their lifetime. So the offer process. So we're dealing with offers today. And when representing either a buyer, and we're going to also sort of bring in the tenant to this, because some people, their first offer isn't necessarily buying a property. It could be representing a tenant. Now, there are more things above and beyond when it comes to tenant that we can get into in a different session. But for the most part, all the paperwork and everything's in the same area. So I'm going to be showing you that as well. We suggest for that first process, if you haven't done an offer before, let us handle it for you. All our front desk staff, administration on the front end, are there to help you through this process. They prepared many, many offers. They're there for data entry and organization. They're not obviously there to do an offer for you, but they are there clerically to help you put together an offer. So we'll show you how to get that help from the administration. Let's talk about our administration for a second. Now, for today, we're assuming that last session, you have done your buyer presentation, and you do have them signed not only with the disclosure working with a realtor, but also to a buyer representation agreement would be nice. So we're not going to go through representation as much today. We're going to go through the offer, but that should be already done. And to get our administration to help you, you will need a cheat sheet, and we're going to see that in a minute. And it's called a cheat sheet. It's available at the front desk. They can also send it to you, and we have some available in the drive that I just showed you in our Google Drive. This is like a fill in the blank, right? So I'll show you a little bit about that. With the cheat sheet properly filled out, it's like a fill in the blanks. You hand that into our front desk. You can email that over, and they will fill out things such as the confirmation of cooperation, agreement of purchase and sale. They can help facilitate any of the paperwork that you maybe need or haven't done yet. Form 801, for example, maybe a Schedule B. So they can help you with that, but they can't do that unless they have the information about what it is you're looking for. Other documents, as I mentioned, Form 801 in your buyer's packages, Schedule B, most likely attached to the listing or on the MLS. So you can call the listing brokerage if there isn't one attached. Not every listing or every offer is going to require a Schedule B. Schedule Bs are the clauses that another agent wants to be put in. The only clause in there that has to be put in, if the other brokerage has a broker trust account that gets interest, they are required to disclose that in a Schedule B. Some brokerages do not have a trust account. Well, they all have a trust. They don't have one that gets interest. So if no interest is given, they don't actually have to disclose the fact that the interest is given. So some do not have a Schedule B. And then any other representation documents, if you haven't filled in already, like the working with the realtor or the buyer representation, they could also provide that to you. Should you just ask them for that? There is a requirement list of all the paperwork that is also going to be in the next couple slides. So I'm going to show that as well. And again, just a reminder, they have to be in writing. Okay, cheat sheets must be used in all circumstances. We can't just call the front desk and assume they can, throw together a typical offer or anything like that. They're not real estate agents. That's a RICO mandate. They are not there to give that type of service. Their service is strictly on an administrative level. They will take direction from you. So also make sure anything filled out is double checked, because there's always human error, and you are ultimately responsible for all your paperwork. So we're looking at a cheat sheet. This is what we need you to fill in order for the front desk to provide you with the administrative services. So for yourself, the MLS number, the buyer and the seller's information, the property address, and then if it's a condo, you're on this side. If it's a freehold, it's on this side. Very similar cheat sheet for tenant if you're representing a tenant. So you'll know what the offer price is herewith or upon acceptance, typically upon acceptance, check mark that, the deposit, who the deposit is payable to, if there's any schedules like we just talked about, Schedule B, when it's irrevocable too. So you continue to fill this out all the way down till you get to the commonly used clauses. These are the clauses that would be commonly used in a residential freehold purchase. So you can go through and say, yes, I want a balance of the purchase price clause, the mortgage clause. There is a list of clauses that the front desk can send to you if you want to look through, or you should look through. You can also, and I'm going to get to the digital end of things as well. The digital working on offers through web forms is the other thing we're going to talk about, and they have all the clauses in there. But if you want the front desk, they can send you a list of all of the clauses so you can pick and choose which ones. But these are the ones that are most typical. And then all the paperwork that needs to accompany any deal. So right from the beginning, when we talked about this last week, working with a realtor, the buyer representation or customer service, the confirmation of cooperation, agreement of purchase and sale, Form 801, even a copy of the property listing to hand in, the agent sales information sheet, which we're going to get to when you do a deal. This agent sales info sheet has to be filled in. And then you're going to have waivers or fulfillments, so you'll hand those in. If you were to do a digital signing and we're representing the buyer, you've done that digital signature. There is a digital certificate that you would print and hand in as well. The deposit receipt, when you give in the deposit, the receipt of funds, which is the FinTrack requirement, along with the individual information record, and of course a signed trade record sheet, which our office provides to you, that shows exactly how the commissions are paid, who's getting what, and you got to check that over. So this is just a good checklist to have. The digital platform, which I was mentioning earlier, is if you are comfortable putting this deal together without the aid of the front desk, all this paperwork, along with all the clauses, are available in something called web forms. And we have the pro version. That allows us to give you all of this information all in one package. So when you go onto web forms, it's important that you choose the template, the correct template, which in this case would be working like if it was a residential property, for example, non-condo, just a residential freehold property, you would choose the residential freehold working with a buyer template. And of course, it would have all the right information along with all the typical clauses already put in there for you. And then you can access that information directly on that platform. Now, the nice thing is because we do have the pro version, the front desk, when they do this offer for you, they will be saving this in your version of web forms. So when you click on web forms, whether or not you're a Toronto board member, Hamilton board member, you'll have full access to the web forms, which is a Canadian Real Estate Association platform. And this offer that they put together will be there for you. So if it's 2 a.m, you just did a deal and you need something printed, you could go into web forms. Your offer will be there, and you can print off what you need with regards to that offer in there for you. We're asking that you review your first 2 deals if you haven't done any with your manager first. Go through those deals and just have a little session with the manager to kind of go through and make sure that everything's in the right order. The office manager and anyone that helps you with an offer, they can't tell you exactly whether or not everything's perfect because they don't know your buyer. They don't know if, they have to put in a septic clause because the house has a septic, right? So it's still your offer, but at least they can look it over and make sure there's nothing glaring out there that's wrong. And they can answer any of your questions. So if you're doing an offer and you're sitting with your buyer and you've been through the full list of questions that you have for your buyer, you should have a good idea of what sort of clauses to include, right? Remember, you're representing your client's best interest. You're not representing, let's say, the interest of what should be on paper by law. A lot of people come up to, what should I put in an offer? And they're thinking from a legal standpoint to represent them. Well, there's 2 sides of this, right? There's what the client needs, which legally you must represent. So make sure that you understand their needs and the house's needs. I mean, they're old homes sometimes. I mentioned this later, is the Century Homes, for example, 100 years old. It may have knob and tube wiring. That maybe got, brought up in the home inspection because you had a home inspection, or maybe you just knew this because you know a little bit about old homes, but you should probably include certain clauses in there that has to do with that, right? Are you having that redone before you get possession? Is the insurance company going to have an issue with it? So you may want to include an insurance clause. So these are things that you really need to take into account. Your buyer checklist, which is in your buyer presentation, should have the majority of these questions answered. So not to worry. If you use that checklist, you will be better prepared to write an offer and use these clauses. So here's examples, right? Should a house have a pool? Then a pool-related clause needs to be used. What if you're representing a buyer and the house doesn't have a pool, but the buyer wants to put a pool in? What are the steps? What are the things that need to be put in there? I would consider putting in clauses that relate to needing certain, let's say, conditions upon approval, not even approval, it could be a permit approval, but conditional upon checking with the municipality and finding out if a pool is legally allowed to be put on that lot. Like, even things like that, you should consider doing. So, some houses may have septic, may have a well. You need well-associated clauses to protect their interest, septic clauses. Maybe there's an oil tank that is currently on the property. You may want to put something in there about having it removed. Or again, insurance, just, finding out if it can be insured. So I typically have this question with whoever I'm sitting across doing the session, and ask if there's any other examples and start to think of those things, put yourself in those positions. And I'm sure there are some people even today on this session that could, say, oh yeah, back in 2015, I had this house that, there was a pipe coming out of the background in the back right-hand side of the corner of the property, and we didn't know what it was. So we went to the town, found out it was an easement, and we had to make sure that we put that in the offer. So these are things that happen within the negotiation of a deal, and we need to address it. I don't want to scare you at the same time. If you put in our common clauses, commonly used clauses, I think 98% of the time you're going to be fine. A home inspection will identify a lot of issues that you may have to put in clauses after you have a conditional deal, but at least they're identified. So the concern is sometimes when people are removing those clauses, and we can talk about that, and just making sure that if you're removing clauses, you're doing it for good reason. Obviously, somebody's taking a risk-reward decision, but that decision is up to the buyer to make sure that the buyer doesn't put themselves at a risk they're not measuring by your knowledge. So let's talk about registering the offer, because you've seen the property, the buyer wants to put in an offer, you've done your buyer presentation, you've gone through the process, and now you want to put together an offer. Should you register that offer? What does that registration process look like? When should I do it? Tell me a little bit about that. So let's do that. How do you register an offer? Well, at this point in time, RICO really makes no definition of what a registered offer is, but for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to consider a registration as meaning a signed offer. And RICO does, they do define what a signed offer is, and they have rules about signed offers. And offers that are true and irrevocable are considered a signed offer. And so as soon as your client's interested and they want to buy or put an offer in on a property, my suggestion is you give the agent on the other side, the one that's listed the property, a heads up. Give them a phone call and see where you're at. Don't think that you're going to hold your cards tight at this point in time. Don't show too much interest. That's not as important as making sure you're part of a process. And if they're interested, if your buyers are interested in this house, the worst thing to happen is for this house to be sold and you not have the opportunity in order to put an offer in. So I would suggest giving that agent a call and asking a few questions and letting them know a few things. Have any offers been already registered? Have they been, have there been any presented in the past? When can they present if I was put something together? Because that's going to, if it's tonight, then that's a good thing. If it's tomorrow, then there's decisions that need to be made about when you actually hand that to them. So Ask other things like what's the seller's preferred closing date? How do they feel on price? And there are certain questions you can start asking that aren't right or wrong. They're just negotiate. You're really starting, putting the groundwork for a negotiation. Some agents will give you a lot more information than they probably should. And that's okay to do that or ask those questions because you're representing your buyer and you want to find out, everything you can in order to put together that offer. So what I would suggest at that point in time, if you have asked those questions, you probably have a good strategy of when this thing's going to happen. So let's say it's happening at 8 o'clock tonight and say, my people are going to putting this together. They're interested. I'm putting together an offer, and they say, well, yeah, they're available tonight. How's 8 o'clock? That sounds great. If your people aren't ready to put an offer in, but they just still are interested in the house, I would still call the agent and say, listen, keep me up to date with what's happening. Is essentially what we do. I can't promise you an offer, but I really want to know if there's anything happening. So just to make sure you put yourself in line there to get a phone call if anything happens. So better to register an offer, a signed offer early. This has to do with whether or not you have an offer that's currently being presented at 8 o'clock and you're the only offer, or whether or not there's one, next Monday that they've held off offers, right? So just register as early as possible. That means they have the obligation to let you know if there's any other offers. By telling them you have a signed offer is really what you should be doing. You are essentially putting in a rule in place that you have to be told. They have a RICO obligation in order to let you know if any other offers are registered and when that's happening. So you'll be kept up to date. You'll never lose out if you call and have that, we'll call it registered with the office, have them paged out that you have a signed offer. So a couple little things before you put together an offer. If you're related to that buyer, do you have to disclose that? Any relation to the buyer should be disclosed, even if it's a second cousin or if it's my ex-wife's new husband. Still disclose it. It's a good idea. I think the rule is, maybe a direct relative. I'm not actually sure exactly how to word it, but the fact is if you have to ask the question, should I disclose it? Go ahead and do it. It helps. It helps show that you're a diligent agent, and it's just a matter of filling out a piece of paper and sending it along with the offer to say that they are related to you and that there's nothing that you know about the property that can affect the value. So you must complete, it's called a registrant's disclosure of interest acquisition form, and you'll have to present that prior. Okay, little note, when presenting an offer, make sure you try your best, and I think I'm going to go through this, but make sure to do it in person. I don't know how many times I have presented offers. Let's say there's 100 offers that I've presented over a 10-year period. I would say, let's say 70, if I presented the offer in person, I would have a 95% chance of that being accepted that night. If I emailed it in and it was, over a 24-hour period, I would say that drops down to 50-50. This might come together, right? So we're talking a 40% difference if you're presenting in person. If we're going smoothly, coming together. I know things are changing. I know people want it emailed, and especially right now with COVID, it's 100% not in person, so it's digitally. But I hope that doesn't stay that way, because when you're there with your buyers at the property and the listing agent with the sellers, everybody wants to get the deal done, right? There's nobody who really wants to walk away unless they have to. So it typically gets done. So let's talk about presentation of offers. Here's some tips when presenting an offer to a seller or listing agent. These are not tips that are 100% you have to use. Some of them are, but I would say that here's some just good business practices. Obviously, presenting in person, make sure to be on time and dressed to impress. Don't be coming in a hoodie and etc. They are going to take your presentation of that offer along with what's written as how they're going to negotiate with you. So if you present yourself professionally, you're probably going to get a professional response. If you're less than impressed with the way person, dresses, or less of the professionality, then this is probably how things are going to run. It's just going to be a little sloppier. So make sure to do that. Bring at least 2 copies of an offer. A lot of agents are still using more than 1 copy, and so should they. Really, it's easier to work with. You can, both agents have something to look at when they go back to their client. If I was in person, I only have 1 copy. I leave that with the listing agent, because that's their offer now. It's not mine. It's not my buyer's. It's now the seller's offer. They have every right to hold on to that. Now we have nothing to look at in the car even. So try and bring more than 1 copy. A copy of the listing will definitely help. And then any comparables in the area. You may use it, you may need it, you may not, but to have them there, it's going to be shows that you did your homework. I would not suggest you bring them, let's say, as part of the offer. If you're presenting the offer in person, you're not going to pull out comparables and tell them why their home is overpriced and offend them, because again, you want to negotiate in good faith, and you want things to run smoothly, and you want to work on the price, but you don't want to insult them. So just bring them along. Every agent has a different negotiating style. And anytime I do this seminar, I really, I focus on the fact that this isn't about negotiations, especially the fact this is a quick start program. It's how, the basics, right? As soon as you get into the professional negotiations, really honing your skills, being in the business a long time, but also practicing them and learning from others, that is a whole negotiation course and a couple hours of sitting down and going through personality styles. Everyone has a different personality style, and each style you'll have to deal with differently. But in general, okay, if you're courteous and polite to both the seller and the agent, things will run smoother. Yes, you're going to have to play a little bit of hardball tactics from time to time in order to say sorry. That's all we can do. But the professionality you should never walk away from. You should never let that get involved. It shouldn't be about the personalities, I guess, between agents. It really should be about your buyer and seller, and all respect around the table. So the tough negotiating, the hard-nosed tactics should be discussed between agents. I mean, when we're negotiating at the table, really it's between 2 agents. We should leave the buyer and the seller either in the car or in the home, but not get them involved in the discussions, because that's what we're paid for. We're here to negotiate. And it's very important in any situation when you're buying and selling anything, cars and all this sort, that you don't let the personalities dictate and get involved. And sometimes we get very defensive if we're excited about a property we're purchasing, or we're nervous about a property we're selling. Sometimes we don't make the best decisions without the proper advice. And so let the agents do their job, I guess. If the agent asks you to email the offer in instead of presenting in person, at least ask, can I drop it by the house? Especially if it's multiple offers. You want to see what's going on. You want to show that, again, it's professional. You want to be able to explain it face to face if you can. So these are things, right now I would be using the Zoom or the Google Meets and all that sort of stuff. Because, when you're face to face, you're more likely to respect the person on the other side, but also to be able to be heard. It's not just over, either the phone or in some cases, some people just email and don't even call. It's just crazy. Make sure whatever you do, don't text. Just stay away from your phone. Throw it out for the night. I mean, it can get you in trouble. So texting back and forth. Now, sometimes it's good for communications to know when you're going in the house and stuff. So I didn't maybe mean it literally, but I do want you to think about the phone as just a device to maybe let people know what time and stuff, just the details. Do not negotiate over text. It is the worst enemy. It will be used against you, and the courts are using it against, and even from a legal standpoint. And never, ever get into a negative discussion or disparage anybody in the process, especially on text. But in general, you shouldn't. Okay, so make sure you, in person if possible, but at least drop it off and make contact, give them a call. And right now, use Zoom. As much as the listing agent will try and take control of a situation, and in some cases, the listing agent is going to be the person that's controlling what's happening with an offer process, it's best to know when and how things are being presented. So if they ask for a 24-hour irrevocable, then say, I'm going to give you 24 hours to get your client together, but my irrevocable is going to be about a 4-hour period. So let me know when you can get together with them, and I will send it over at that point in time with a 4-hour irrevocable. You don't want to leave negotiations forever or for a long time. People, again, do not tend to take things seriously. They'll let it sit. I don't have to give that back to them for, another 23 hours. So it just won't happen very quickly, and then it causes issues. So make sure to ask if you could present today. Okay, make sure to include your buyer in every step of the process. And sometimes we forget this, that it is their offer. And I know that seems strange, but even from, whether or not it can be from pricing, the clauses to include, this offer is being drafted up between you and the buyer. Right? So it is their decision ultimately how things are handled. Include them how you're negotiating. This is our strategy. We're going to show up in person. You're going to be in the car. I'm going to go in. It's probably going to take about a half an hour. That first sign back could be an hour process. So, if they're thinking that this is going to happen in 10 minutes and their expectation, and they got kids at home, that could really ruin a deal. Because they're putting the kids to bed at 8 o'clock. Then maybe somebody has to, look after the kids, has to leave at 8. So, but they expected it to be done by 8. Let them know, especially in a multiple offer process, you can start at 8, but sometimes it doesn't end until about 1 a.m. So it's gonna be a long process. So make sure to include them in every step so that their expectations are being met. What happens if we have a multiple offer scenario? First of all, multiple offers are difficult, and I would suggest at any point in time that you're doing a multiple for the first few times is to talk to your office manager and get their opinion. And along the way too, right? Give them a call, and I'm at this step, what should I do next? Because it is important to make sure that you do your best to prepare somebody for multiple offers. First of all, your client. Make sure to educate them as to how these multiple offer scenarios happen. Make sure, and I'm just going to read what's on the screen here. The buyer should be given direction on how strong the offer will need to be complete and hopefully win the bidding process. So you really need to pull any band-aids. The reality is you need to put together a strong competitive offer, and the buyer sometimes is going to go, I'm not going to tell them exactly what I would pay. You need to know these things, and you need to let them know you may only get one chance at this. So we need to really construct an offer that is strong, which means we'll talk about important conditions like home inspection, financing. Should we include them? Remember, it's the buyer's decision. It's never your decision whether or not to remove those clauses. It's only your responsibility to let them know what risks they're getting into. So why would I remove a home inspection condition? Well, in this case, the home's about 10 years old. We know there's deficiencies in the home. However, there's a risk reward scenario here. There's 5 other offers, and you would probably have to pay about $20,000 more in this case for them to even look at your offer over somebody that's going without that condition. So that's the risk. What do we think could be wrong with this house? And is that, are you willing to take that risk that maybe there is a crack in the foundation and it's $1,000 repair, or maybe we haven't got a chance to go up into the attic, so we don't know if there's mold up there. So these are things that could happen, but are you willing to take that risk? Do you love the house enough that you're willing to take that risk, and that those things, you've got a little extra money in the bank, so that when we do a home inspection after we've bought it or whatnot, or you get the possession, that that there could be a few things here and there. You have those discussions. Personally, I probably wouldn't remove a home inspection condition until ever, really. I would never not have a home inspection. I would remove the condition, but I would have the home inspection done prior to making the offer. So knowing this and going through many situations where there are multiple offers, and learning from that is, what, we can do a home inspection. Let's do one on the Sunday. They're presenting on Monday. We'll do a quick one. We'll go through a home inspection with a guy I know, $200. He won't do a written report, but he'll go check the major things just so we have more confidence. these are things that you need to prepare your client for. Of course, clients going, wow, this is amazing. Like, we got the house because, the agent, not, in this case, myself, I was experienced enough to know, have the home inspection, just don't include it as a condition, right? Just little things like that can make a big difference. So get them ready. If they do remove any conditions that are important, which would be things such as home inspection, financing, sale of a buyer's property, those things have to be written on a piece of paper that's in a RIA form. That's called conditions and offer, the buyer acknowledgement, that you're taking away those conditions and you're not telling them to do that. You're just advising them, and you're just advising them of the risks associated with removing those clauses. So make sure that's filled in, because that is a very important document that will get you out of jail free at some point in time if somebody decides to say, oh no, he told us don't put a home inspection. Now we found out that the whole roof needs to be replaced and it's $25,000 and he made us go without an inspection. So just make sure ahead of time, preparation is everything when it comes to multiples. Obviously, the stronger the offer, the more likelihood that the offer is going to go get accepted. So please, think of everything, higher deposit, again, risk reward, things such as bringing a certified check along with, not just, presenting it with that certified check means a lot. Having maybe a letter from the financing company, whoever's doing the financing, just to say how strong they are. They're a great client. Going without the finance clause, but closing on the property are two different things. So as much as what's on paper is important, it's also important how we present. So you can explain that to them as well, and how well you present, and make sure that theirs gets looked. I've had even agents, take a picture of their client, put alongside a little handwritten note and say, this family really loves their home and they just want to say how much how much it would really mean to them to purchase this tonight, and they really love your home. So if it's a close offer, they're going to choose yours over somebody else that they never got to meet the family. So these are all good things. Register your offer early. We already talked about that. If you don't register early, you're not in line. You may get that house sold from underneath you. And it has happened more than a few times every year in our brokerage. We talk to agents all the time. It got sold and my buyers really wanted it. Can they do that? They said they were holding off till Friday. Isn't that illegal? It doesn't matter if it's legal, wrong, unethical. Your people didn't get the house. Why? Well, because you didn't register. You didn't call. You didn't tell them you're interested. They have an obligation, if they know that there's a signed offer, to keep you in the loop. So please make sure you do that. And then step 4, present your offer. Whenever possible, do it in person. We talked about that as well. So multiple offers, if you're in person, again, it's face-to-face with that letter and the check and the high deposit and the clauses and the home inspection ahead of time. These all are things that are going to win you the deal. So these are all good points. Here is that clause. Here's that form for the condition being removed. This is the one you need to fill out if you take away, and it even says in there, will not be including a condition of buyer's offer for the above described property. Will be waiving the conditions, the financing above, the sale of the buyer's property, arranging insurance, home inspection. These are all things. I've always thought, well, why did they put insurance in there? And it's important in houses in certain situations where the houses may not get insurance, right? It's an old house with an oil furnace, wood stove, knob and tube wiring, and asbestos in the attic. There's no insurance company in the world that's going to do that without charging them $10,000 a year for it, sort of thing. So, and if they want to buy it sight unseen and there's no insurance, you might get them to initial that. So these are all good things. And there's even a section in there for that you can put other circumstances like, yeah, I told them this house, it's got a biker gang, let's say there was a, that commercial with the realtor.ca commercials with the biker gang in the area. Well, I disclosed that to them and I know that's going to bother me. I've got young kids and they didn't seem to mind. So I'm going to put that in here just because, listen, you're buying this property without putting a clause in there about this or knowing about that. So this is a good form to use for any of those disclosures that you want to make sure that you have disclosed those facts to them and they're still putting the offer together. this is a sales information sheet. So just so going back, right back to multiple offers, there's a lot more involved in everything I went over so far today, whether it be multiple offers or how to do like forms and clauses and what clauses to include. I want everybody to know that this is a brief overview of the process in putting together an offer. All these extra things are all the great resources of training that we have in addition to this quick start program, we call it. So make sure to continue taking the training in the different areas. We have training specifically on multiple offers, for example. Forms and clauses is, a good one Isabel does. So I just want to point that out as well. But when you have the deal done, because you've done a great job negotiating back and forth and doing all the good things, this form is called a agent sales information sheet. It's available on the drive as well as through the front desks. So please make sure when you're handing in a deal to fill this out completely, right? It's a good overview of everything that needs to be added to our system. Just because it's in the offer somewhere, let's say the buyer information or the seller information, like it's in there somewhere with all the documents, it's not up to their back-end admin to go searching to find all the answers to this. There's a deposit. How much is it? When was it given? So fill it in completely, everything that you can. If you don't know, for example, little things like you don't know who the seller's lawyer is yet, that's fine. You can always follow up afterwards, but it's the information that you do know that you haven't put on here that can be very difficult for our back-end admin to go searching for, and it takes them a lot of time to find. So make sure to fill this in. And so at that point in time, you've handed in the deal. What the back end is going to do, the administration on our back end admin, they're going to put all the information in, digitalize everything, put it into a nice little package, send off lawyer letters, talk to the other cooperating brokerage, get the deal transitioned into a closing process. They're going to do all that for you. They just need you to fill in the information. So they do that behind the scenes. In order for them to pay out a deal, they need you to sign a trade record sheet. I'm not sure if I put that on here or not. No. But a trade record sheet, I think that might be a next session. I have a copy of one as an example, will be something else they send you. So you send them all the paperwork, they send you a one-page sheet that sort of gives you all the information about the deal, who the buyer, seller, the agents, who's paying who, how it's being paid, the commission splits with even with the brokerage, everything's on there. Just make sure that they'll ask for a signature. So you sign it and send it back. And then you wait for a closing day and hopefully it closes and you get paid. So in the process of putting together a deal and having it accepted, soon as it goes firm, at some point in time, so there's two things that really are initiated. One of them I want to teach you or show you today, which is called Real Satisfied. Excuse me. The other one that we do is called Move Snap, which I think I did actually last week. I'm not sure which session that was in. So Move Snap sends out a little invite for a portal to have your client sign into to help them through the moving process, whereas Real Satisfied takes them through a questionnaire and really hones in on how you did and how our company did, and so how the whole process worked. We currently are sitting with a 99% success rate with a ton of 5-star agents. So those 5-star, 4 and 5 is not the best, by the way. I hate having or seeing 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 30 submissions. They think it's fake. So you see some with 4.8 that are probably more, let's say, trusted than the 5s. And so when you do search and you see the 4.8s or the 4.9s and you didn't score perfectly, don't be sad about that. Be happy because now it looks real. So Real Satisfied is a performance evaluation customer satisfaction platform. It's designed exclusively for the real estate industry, and Real Satisfied sends surveys to home buyers and sellers when the transaction close. It will give you validation from the past clients and customers to earn you future business and fill your pipeline, and that will happen. People will look at your online reputation, and when they see these stars and these testimonials you get, it helps a lot. It gives you the ability to easily integrate with your C21 website and social media platforms. So it gives you little snippets that you can put on your website or anywhere you want to put all over the internet with your testimonials and stuff. But you only really know how to use that if you log in. So you can do it. We automate it for you. We don't have to, you don't even have to touch it. But if you do log in, you will have access to some of the more, some more tools to be able to copy some of those codes and stuff over onto your website. How to get started. Currently, how you would get access to Real Satisfied, you'd be logging into Google. I'll show you quickly. You'll be going down to your Core 21 platform. And by the way, we're going to try and make this easier, but currently this is where it is. Core 21. Sign in under your account. Hopefully it takes me right in. Good. And then under organization. And under organization, it's going to be on the left-hand side. It says Real Satisfied. And you'll just click on Real Satisfied. You'll do a one-click sign-in. It'll take you right into your platform. Again, this is not a full how to use session. There is a Real Satisfied recorded video session as well as sessions that we have all the time on it. So don't worry, you will get to learn it if you haven't already. Go back into here. So now that I've gone through the basics of putting together an offer and the different forms and everything to fill out, we get to your homework for this session. We'll talk about it again next week when we go over working with sellers. But I want you to continue seeing 10 homes a week, whether it be virtually or if you're out showing properties. Add a minimum of 10 more contacts into the CRM, into your CRM, whatever you're using. And a CRM can be as easy as a spreadsheet, a Google, it could be Google Sheets, it could be an Excel spreadsheet, it could be your contacts within Google, it could be on your phone, you could be using MailChimp. We are implementing a new CRM that is going to be an automated system for you to hold all your clients and everything with Remarketer, and that's going to be about a 2-week window right now on that, and then we'll show you that. Schedule Quick Start 5. I'll be sending out information on that. It will be next week. I just don't know the time and date yet, but I will be sending that out. Watch the Real Satisfied training video that we do have in the YouTube channel, our Century 21 Heritage Group training channel. Grab fill out a cheat sheet just to learn how to do that. So when you do a deal, obviously you have to fill in the cheat sheet to have our office do the offer for you and fill out the information for you. So just fill one out just so you can see all the information you're going to have or going to want to know, and ask any questions if you have any. And start looking at transaction desks or web forms. We talk about web forms. We call it transaction desk here. That's the name of the company or the platform that we're using through web forms on digital offers. Get in there, have a look, maybe create one. There is training videos on it. I have probably out there four different videos I've done over the last year or so. So just type in web forms 2019 web forms on our YouTube channel. There, it's there. We also have one that's called Transaction Desk. Either one's fine. I think the most latest one would be the best one to look at there. And then the quote 10 things, just having satisfied just having satisfied customers isn't good enough anymore. If you really want a booming business, you have to create raving fans. And that's why this process, along with the other ones that we've gone through so far, are so important. You follow, sitting down and doing things professionally and making sure to go through that full list and all the good things that we teach, that is going to make raving fans. It's not enough just to have a transaction close. You'll fill your bank account once and never see it fill again if you just do the basics. You really want to make sure you get that repeat referral business. It's the cheapest form of advertising. It's the most important form of advertising. So do a great job and they'll appreciate it.